Yo guys, it's You Look Upset, and I am back with another guide for the Project Ascension Warcraft Reborn Classic Plus Bronzebeard server. After my last demonology guide, I've gotten a lot of DMs, questions, and comments about making an Affliction guide. This is going to be an Affliction single target PvE DPS guide. This is going to be mainly focused on single target and single target only. Demonology is the undisputed AoE king. I don't think there's any class in the game that can put out as much DPS in an AoE scenario as a Demonology Warlock. It's very easy to play. It's very easy to pump. If you guys haven't seen my guide on that, I will put a link in the description for you. Check that out. Now I'm going to try to get this guide out to you in the same format that I did my previous guide. We're going to go over the talents. We're going to go over the mystic enchants. I'm going to give a quick rundown of the stat priority. I'm going to give a quick demonstration of the rotation. And then most importantly, we are going to talk about snapshotting. Snapshotting is a very big portion of our damage as an Affliction Warlock. So if you are not familiar with that, I'm going to go over the basics here, and we will get you guys set up with being able to snapshot a Giga Corruption and let that ride all the way through to the end of the boss fight, and we'll get you guys topping the meters in a single target raid scenario. Let's get right into the talents. These are pretty much your cookie cutter raid DPS talents. All PvE, straight to business, all the way down to haunt. That's what it looks like. And now we'll jump into the mystic enchants. Your legendary, you're going to want to run Soul Harvest. Now the reason you want to run this is we talked about snapshotting a little bit. There's two things that we are looking for. You are looking for percentage based damage modifiers and critical strike modifiers. Those are the only two things that you can snapshot. Your haste is dynamic, your spell power is dynamic. Those will automatically be updated. You don't need to worry about them. So for Soul Harvest, it increases your magic damage and your pet's damage by 15%. 15% is a big damage modifier. So we're going to take that 15% and we're going to snapshot that into our corruption, and through our everlasting affliction talent, that is going to ride all the way through the beginning of the boss fight to the very end. We are going to keep that 15% rolling, and every time you drain life or drain soul or shadow bolt or haunt, it's going to refresh the duration of that corruption and also refresh and keep that giga juicy snapshot rolling. That is why we run Soul Harvest. Next one will be Curse Weaver. Not only is it amazing to be able to use two curses, it also increases the damage of our corruption by 4% for each curse that we have applied. So we're going to take that 8% and we're going to snapshot that into the corruption as well. So for your curses, you're always going to want to run Curse of Elements no matter what. If you are the only warlock in the raid, this is your single biggest damage curse, not only for you, but for your entire raid. Your other curse will be Agony. This will be one of the dots that you are managing. If there's more than one warlock in the raid, and let's say you've already talked to him and he's like, yo, I'm gonna use Curse of the Elements this week, that's perfect. In that scenario, you would run Curse of Doom and you would run Curse of Agony. That's always really nice to be able to lock in two DPS curses for the added bonus, but Curse of Elements should always be locked in either by you or the other warlock in the raid. That brings us down to Agonizing Coil. Not only will your Death Coil apply Curse of Agony now, which is nice, but what we're really looking at is the 10% increased chance to critically strike with your spells for 15 seconds. We are going to take this 10% crit and we're going to snapshot that into the corruption, and it's going to ride the entire fight. Even though it says 15 seconds on the tooltip, due to everlasting affliction like we talked about, it's going to ride all the way the entire fight, which makes this a very strong mystic enchant. That brings us to our last epic, Eternal Torment. Casting Haunt on a target that is already afflicted by your Haunt will make it a 100% critical strike. That's very nice. 100% crits are always good, but it also increases the damage over time proportion of our damage over time effects by an additional 5%. And when we combine that with the Glyph of Haunt, that's another 3%. So we're going to take this 8% and we're going to snapshot that into our corruption along with everything else here. And that brings us to the blue MEs. Glyph of Quick Decay is our bread and butter. Your haste now reduces the time between your periodic damage ticks of your corruption. This makes haste affect your corruption. The faster your corruption ticks, the more damage it is. As you'll see later during the rotation, how much of our damage profile actually comes from corruption. It's very large, but not only that, faster ticks gives us higher chance to proc eradication. This talent is absolutely juiced. More ticks gives us higher chance. When this procs, your damage is really starting to ramp up. You can feel this when it procs. It increases your haste by 20%. It feels very good and it is very strong. So we want this to proc as often as we can get it. And that will bring us down to improved Shadow Bolt. Now, Shadow Bolt is going to be our main filler. This is a very good ME. It not only increases your Shadow Bolt damage by 10%, but it also puts a debuff on the target that increases your chance to crit against that target with spells by 5%. Not just for you, but for your entire raid. That brings us up to Demonic Aegis. Not only does this give us from 50 up to 65 spell power on our Fel Armor, but it juices up our conversion of spirit to spell power. In synergy with these two talents here, we basically get almost 60% of our spirit as spell power. So for every 10 spirit you have on your gear, you will get 6 spell power from that. And that brings us to the final one, Bane. Like I said, our filler is Shadow Bolt. This reduces the casting time of Shadow Bolt by a half second. So very good synergy in the overall build. And that brings me to wanting to talk about the buffs that we put on ourselves a little bit. We're always going to use Fel Armor. It's just too good. 65 spell power plus the spirit to spell power conversion makes this an incredible buff. We're always going to use the major spellstone. I'm going to roll that right into the stat priority here. Our number one is going to be our hit cap. Like I said in the demonology video, our hit cap on the server is 17%. I misspoke in that guide. I was thinking of the TBC Shaman's Totem of Wrath that gives 3% hit and 3% crit. I was wrong about that. You still can get 3% hit through Fairy Fire or through a Shadow Priest. So the principles remain the same. You want to walk into a raid with 14% hit if you have a Fairy Fire on the boss or a Shadow Priest in the raid. That'll get you to 17%. So that's our number one stat priority, 17%. Number two is spell power, spell power, spell power. We cannot get enough spell power. That's it. In my opinion, I think spirit equals haste as affliction. You really want as much haste as you can get. Spirit obviously is very good because spell power is king. So every 10 spirit, you get 6 spell power. But don't sleep on the haste. You want the haste, and then lastly will be the critical strike. Before we get into the rotation, I want to talk about snapshotting. There's a couple items in the game right now that if you've been following the Bronzebeard Warlock channel at all in the Discord, I'm sure you've seen this lens of questionable visions mentioned multiple times. What this does is it's an offhand, and obviously you can see it's got 10 static crit on it, but it also increases your crit strike by 61 for 12 seconds, and people have been using this in trying to snapshot a Giga Corruption, and in my opinion, it is not worth it. I think that it is trash. When you pop this, okay, it lasts for 12 seconds, but it puts your trinket on cooldown for 10 seconds. That gives you a 2-second window to try and min-max a Giga Snapshotted Corruption. That alone, the reward is not worth the risk. But then on top of that, this item also has a chance to give you a debuff, which reduces your hit by 240, which is an insane amount of hit to lose. You do not want that to be on you at any point in time. I do believe that that equals about to 14% of your hit lost, which in my opinion makes this item completely hot garbage. Now, the other item that every Affliction Warlock in the game should be trying to get their hands on is Hazza'rah's Charm of Destruction. Get it as fast as you possibly can. And what you're going to do, you are going to macro this trinket into your racial and your soul harvest. So when you pop this in the opener, you are going to snapshot that 210 crit rating into your corruption. Now, this trinket has been changed from previous versions of the game. It used to only increase the critical strike chance of your destruction spells, but now it will increase your critical strike rating of all spells by 210. Insane trinket for the Affliction snapshot, and it's very easy to use it and snapshot it. Get your hands on this ASAP. One last thing I want to talk about in the absolute min-max of scenarios. I'm sure you've heard people talking about weapon swapping and setting up a different weapon to snapshot their corruption in the opener. I've never been a fan of weapon swapping. I've tried some weapon swapping shenanigans in Wrath of the Lich King, and in my opinion, the weapon swapping incurs a GCD, and sometimes for whatever reason stuff happens and the weapon doesn't swap out, and in my opinion it can completely brick your opener. I don't personally do it. That being said, if you can manage to do it perfectly, it is a DPS increase. If you are an advanced player, you have knowledge of weapon swapping and the weak auras to track the procs. I didn't weapon swap in Wrath of the Lich King. I still parsed full 99s and even a few 100s. It's not going to make or break your parse if you don't want to weapon swap. It's not that big of a deal. Let's jump right into the rotation here. So this is the pure single target Affliction rotation. If you played Wrath of the Lich King, you know how the potion system works. If you don't, I'm going to explain it here for a second. You can pre-pot a combat potion before you get into combat, and then once you get into combat, you can use one and only one potion. So what you want to do here is Affliction, you want to pre-pot this potency potion and snapshot that 140 crit into your opener, which makes it very, very strong. And then once you get to 25% and you start draining, that's when you use your second potion, which will be the Potion of Lesser Haste. So you want to keep both of these on you. They're both very strong. Potency in the opener, Lesser Haste in the closer. You know, the pull timer is ticking down. You're going to life tap. You're going to pre-pot. You're going to Curse of the Elements, Haunt, Shadow Bolt, so you get 3 stacks. Pop all your CDs, Death Coil, Corruption, and then UA. And this is your whole rotation here. Now you're going to refresh Haunt as soon as it's available. That's the only spell that you want to clip here. Everything else, you want it to tick all the way down. As soon as Corruption's up, you cast it. Everything else, let it fall off, and then recast it. You don't want to clip any other dots except Haunt. You're casting Haunt as soon as it's off cooldown. When Death Coil is up, you'll Death Coil because that will reset your agony, and you're going to do this all the way till 25%. Now, once you get to 25%, you'll pop the haste, and then you're draining. You want to refresh Haunt and only Haunt because you want to get as much drain damage as you can, and you want to min-max these ticks, okay? Right after a tick, that's when you want to Haunt. You're kind of watching the tick bar here when you can. Right after a tick is when you want to refresh that Haunt. Now, Haunt has a travel time, so depending on how far or close to the boss you are, and you'll get used to judging that the more you play, you'll kind of get a feel of when you can replace Haunt, because you never want this to fall off, especially in the drain phase. You're not resetting Shadow's Embrace with Shadow Bolts. If you let Haunt fall, you're going to let that fall. That's bad news. That's the whole rotation. If you follow that, you will be cranking at the top of the meters. I guarantee it. It's a bit more complicated than Demonology, but overall it's not that hard to replicate. This, I believe, will be the premier single target DPS class and spec in the game. No class is going to scale harder than Affliction Warlock as the content progresses, as we get more gear and we get more haste and we get more spell power, and the drain phases the boss fights start to get longer, which means those drain phases start to get longer, and that's when the Affliction Warlock really comes online and starts ramping up. One last thing I wanted to talk about with snapshotting as well. If you have a rogue friend in the opener, they can Tricks of the Trade you as you're running in, and you can take that extra 15% damage and snapshot that into your corruption too. That's the whole guide. One thing in closing here that I would like to say is I would like to give a shout out to Stex in the Bronzebeard Warlock channel. The extensive research and time that he put into the PTR and the beta was absolutely phenomenal. Even though I played Warlock at a high level in Wrath of Lich King, being able to cross-reference all of my knowledge with all of the extensive research and knowledge that he put into his write-up. He has his own thread there, and he gives a very detailed write-up, and he's very good at explaining things. So if you are not understanding what I'm talking about with snapshotting, go ahead and go over there and give his write-up a look. He's very good at explaining things. So my hat's off to you, sir. I appreciate the knowledge that you put out to the community and the extensive research that you did on the PTR. It was absolutely amazing, and it really helped writing this guide and putting this guide out to the communities. I just want to say thank you, and thanks to all of you, for everybody that checked out my demonology video, and thanks for watching this video, and I will catch you guys at the top of the meters. GG's.